Hey everyone, it's Stuart here from Madeira. I'm here with Aleks Vickovich, editor extraordinaire and journalistic superstar, we'd say, wouldn't we?
Sure, you can say superstar. I wouldn't say that about myself. I'm a very modest person.
Seems to be. Just sort of give you an update. It's the end of day 2. A bit of a summary. Another full day. That's probably the way to go. What were your highlights for the day, Aleks?
Well, look, I'm not a technologist. I'm not a, and I don't run a practice. So for me, the bits that I'm interested in possibly different to others. But we heard from Hightower this morning, and to me that was absolutely the standout. Even inspiring, I would say, that model. And partly it's, I think, the American way of presenting that is, he was very good at what he did. He was clearly a polished sales exec. He was from New York and flew out specifically for this. And so he was very good at doing what he did. But the idea of a firm that is growing and has scale, but is independent in nature, is just very inspiring. And trying to unpack how we then, build similar firms to that one, is interesting. So
it is. I mean, I looked at the story where 2008, they've seen the GFC. They've had this attitude that's got to be done differently. They've gone and raised 65 million, then raised 145, I think it was. And then built their whole system from the ground up. It kind of just makes you realise that maybe that's a phase in Australia where we're sort of ready to see that kind of heavyweight just come into the market.
Absolutely, but I think there are plenty of innovative IFAs who want to become that. I think there are obstacles as well, and the obstacles are mainly structural, not so much things that business owners are doing. For example, I think the real key to the Hightower model is that in many ways is that you have individually licensed people coming into a corporate environment with scale. So it's more akin to a law firm in the Australian context in a lot of ways, where people are individually, they're individually accountable for their professional stuff. They come together for business reasons, and they take a share of each other's proceeds. Now, it would be great to have financial services firms in Australia like that were more akin to the big 4 accounting firms or to law firms. The problem, I think, is that the regulator doesn't want to see individual licensing, and on the whole, we're still licensing. We're outsourcing that to other people and doing it on their behalf. So if everybody was self-licensed, we can have Hightower.
Well, I know you kind of the opinion that there's a lot of that going on at the moment anyway. So
it is on the move, but just broadly the way that they position themselves, aside from the political stuff and the licensing, there's plenty that an advice practice back home could take from that. And one of them, I think, is just how sure they were of their value proposition. I know that's something you're very passionate about. But just that, what was it, brand? It was the brand. They had this whole thing about just, actually they were pretty critical of Wall Street. It was like Wall Street is broken was, I think, one of the early advertising. And the other one was, this really interesting sort of peel back of a... broker is a butcher.
The broker is a butcher. That was the name. Actually, that's worth, if you check out Hightower's website, I believe it's actually still on there. And you can see it's a scribbled sort of thing. Yeah, really well done. Actually leads really nicely into, I thought the FPA stuff was really interesting as well. And what I found really interesting is a lot of the trends in terms of advisors wanting to be seen more on an attorney footing. Sort of being really, really similar to what we've got going on in Australia, even though the model differs in many ways. What were your thoughts?
I mean, look, it's interesting that they're undergoing a lot of the same issues. Clearly, industry politics in financial services alive and well here in the Bay Area as it is back home. But I do think when you hear from them and the sorts of things they're going through, there are cultural differences. The FPA here, from what he was saying, is basically concerned with trying to see more regulation. They want to see government step in and create a playing field that allows them to be seen more as professionals. And it's interesting because that's what our government said they were going to do. And then I guess it's debatable as to whether that's been good or whether it's gone too far or whatever. But it is different, the sorts of things they're arguing for because of the political climates. But it's it's cool to see that the communities are similar. People come together in study group format. They're talking about the same sort of demographic shifts within the industry, and how there's kind of an older demographic in the FPA, but they're working hard to bring in the younger advisors, and for them to become really standard bearers for the industry. So a lot of overlap with some of the movements happening back home in the association space.
As well as that reminds me actually, a lot of the Hightower marketing was around bringing together well-being and financial wealth, if you like, and that's something that I know a lot of advisors back home are really looking at. So
which you wouldn't expect necessarily from a firm. I mean, it did disrupt Wall Street, but it's still located on Wall Street, you know. And Hightower has a reputation. I mean, they're suit and tie advisors, and you know, they're very high balance clients generally. But even they are moving into this sort of wellness space and that really holistic approach, that kind of financial life management approach. And that really signals to me that, you know, this is not a bunch of, you know, hippie-minded advisors that are going down this path. This is a bunch of really commercial financial services players sitting in a boardroom in Manhattan saying the ball is heading in this direction.
Yeah, and backed by probably a lot of research on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. They're not doing it because they simply believe it's in the best interest of clients. They're doing it because they think there's a serious commercial model as well as that.
Absolutely.
And that's a real validation for people that are going in that direction.
I think so too. Two ones I wanted to touch on before we head off to baseball. Really interesting session with Sabrina Lowell of Mosaic Financial. It's been fascinating for me to see so much technological advancement over here compared to back home, to be quite honest. But in terms of what a lot of advisors are doing, the way they engage their clients, although it's not automated, it's not systematized, in many ways, we're actually ahead of, I think, the bell curve.
Absolutely. And I think that is a, you know, when you come on these sorts of study tours, that can be a preconception that we have. You know, we're here to find best practice. It's America, so things must be, you know, so much better over here. And that's simply not the case. It is the case, I think, that they can more quickly you know, adapt to new technologies. And they also have a real gung-ho business culture that I think is helpful for them. But when it came to the business model, I mean, she was presenting something that was truly innovative over here in terms of her proposition. I mean, there was basically charging for advice is what she was outlining. And it's, you know, revolutionary here. You've been talking about that with your clients, you know, for a long, long time. And it's...
So it was interesting to hear she was talking about the fact that there was a price point of about $7,000 or $8,000 she wasn't able to push through. And she's not dealing with clients who have got, you know, $500,000 in an SMSF. She's dealing with tech entrepreneurs, particularly female tech entrepreneurs who are the breadwinners, who are, you know, they've got $2-3 million. So really interesting to hear that side of things. As well as, last thing up, final thing was some pretty impressive technology.
At the end there. So, I mean, a little bit goes over my head. I'm more interested in your views on InvestCloud was the one that we saw, which is an LA firm. I mean, an incredible story in that founded in 2012 in a garage in California. 215 trillion? It's multiples of trillions.
200 trillion.
200 trillion in assets under management.
It's up there.
I don't know, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And they're moving into the Australian space, so that's fascinating in itself to see a tech startup that's formed here and sees Australia as you know, somewhere worth entering. Fascinating. But I'm keen on your thoughts on what it could mean for practices.
I suggest if you're interested, check it out, because I think my view is this is what probably the future of the CRM platform space, where, you know, if you're an accounting firm and a financial advice firm, or you're a firm which is using multiple disparate systems, you know, something for your digital marketing, something for your client management, another thing for managing, you know, self-managed super funds, being able to put something over the top of it, have it talk to each other, and from a client perspective and internally, it to be seamless. That's just, I mean, that's pretty much every wet dream.
I mean, people talk about the power of the cloud, but that's really it in its purest form, isn't it?
It was. Perfect. So that's pretty much the main highlights from, I think, today. Awesome day. We're off to the baseball.
And to get some sleep before tomorrow.
Excellent.
Thank you.
See you soon.